Hey everybody, welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast. We're helping ODs all over the country make better and better decisions around their money, their careers, and their practices. I am your host, Evon Mendrin, certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, an independent financial planning firm just for optometrists nationwide. And Happy New Year, Happy 2023. Hope your holidays were fantastic. I'm excited to be behind the mic again and back to work. And on the first episode of 2023, I have a fantastic guest, Dr. Joseph Allen, optometrist at Pinecone Vision Center in Minnesota, and the founder of a Dr. Eye Health YouTube channel. And Dr. Allen and I talk about his journey building a personal brand through content, in addition to his work as a practitioner. And he talks about why he started to create content, the ins and outs of how he does it, and how to build a business around content creation. His YouTube channel now is well over 750,000 subscribers, so a pretty good following there, and just the power of building a personal brand around yourself as an optometrist. And a big takeaway for me from the conversation was that there are a lot of different opportunities to build something in addition to your work in the clinic, whether it's content creation or another side business, whatever it may be. And you don't need to get into private practice, in my opinion, into private practice ownership if you don't want to. I think it's a great path to take, but it's not for everyone. And there's a lot of other opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities out there. And one other thought that Dr. Allen mentioned was that after we recorded was that a big motivator for making videos for him was to sort of combat the bad information out there on eye health. And I feel the same way about finance. There's a lot of nonsense out there. And for him, creating good, accurate content for the public was the way that he wanted to push back on bad information. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at Evon, EVON, at optometrywealth.com. You can check out the resources and links mentioned in this episode on our show notes, which you can find at the Education Hub on our website, www.optometrywealth.com. And while you're there, feel free to check out all of our other articles, podcast episodes, and resources, and schedule a no-commitment introduction call to share what's on your mind financially and learn how we serve ODs nationwide, especially with the new year. This is a perfect time to get that conversation started. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Joseph Allen. And welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast. I am your host, Evon Mendrin, and on today's episode, I have yet another fantastic guest. Would love to welcome to the show Dr. Joseph Allen. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. No, thank you. This is an honor after you and I got to meet just maybe a month ago live. Yeah. And I'm honored to be here and chat about everything.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in and talk to you about the whys and the hows of building a personal brand as an optometrist, even when you're not a practice owner. Because when I think about video and optometry, I think of you because I see your videos everywhere. And it's not just your consumer facing videos, your Dr. Eye Health YouTube channel and really the website and everything that comes with that. But it's also all the videos and content you make for optometry, within the optometry profession. Your videos and your content are, from what I see, everywhere. So I would love to dive into how you started to build up that personal brand and really start to make good, high quality content and the why behind that. But before we dive into that, I just want to get a little bit of a background and hear about your background. What got you into optometry? Why the optometry profession?
I think, first of all, I do want to say thank you for just, again, your kind of vote of confidence and approval of the content I've been making. It has been a huge project and undertaking for the last several years. So again, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The pursuit into optometry, I think, of course, if you ask any eye doctor, most people will say either they have a family member who is in it, and that inspired them, or the other, which is my story, which is I just had a really good experience with my local eye doctor growing up, and was sort of I questioned him later in my high school years. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. How did you even get into it? And kind of just set my sights on it.
Mm.
So I had thick prescription for glasses as a young kid. That held me back from really participating in sports. And I was kind of a lonely kid, spent a lot of time indoors, reading, watching movies, playing video games, and wanted to play football in junior high. Couldn't really do it with thick glasses on. So my mother, who was a contact lens wearer, she kind of got me set up for contact lenses, and it just changed my life. You suddenly get into sports. So I started making friends, self-confidence boost. Suddenly girls start paying attention to you. And at the age of like 12, 13, that's like life, right? And so I went to my dentist. He made my gums bleed and they hurt. So I didn't like my dentist very much, but I loved seeing my eye doctor. It seemed like everything he did in the clinic was like black magic. So I always thought favorably on it and kind of just followed that path. So here we are.
Very cool. Yes, that's cool. You saw the positive experience that it had on you and said, hey, I'd like to do this for others too. And you graduated from optometry school in 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, graduated 2015 from the Rosenberg School of Optometry in San Antonio, then did my residency here in Minneapolis at the VA Medical Center.
And then after residency, what was your first step into practicing? What did that early career look like? And what led to the position you're in now?
Yeah, so I originally started working as just an associate doctor for one private practice about half of the week, leaving at least 2 days to kind of fill in at other clinics. And so I worked first I tried to position in a commercial practice. I did a short stint at a traveling kind of senior home gig with a company that also provided dentistry, podiatry, and other healthcare services. And then at another private clinic, which I currently work at now. And I kind of shifted between part-time work at multiple clinics to eventually full-time work at one clinic. And then during that time, I built up this YouTube channel and social media presence to a point where I was able to generate enough revenue from it and passion in it. I was able to transition over to working part-time in a clinic as an associate doctor at a private eye clinic that I just love working at. But then the rest of the week, I get to kind of venture down this other entrepreneurial road, teaching both the public as well as trying to educate other professionals about our profession and everything about it.
Interesting. So we're talking about the Dr. Eye Health YouTube channel, and we're looking at it right now. You've got about 750,000 subscribers, which sounds substantial to me. I'm not sure what the range is, based on different YouTube channels, but that is significant for me to see. And when did you start the YouTube channel? When did that actually start?
Yeah. The first official video went up of July of 2018. Mm-hmm. And I kind of decided in my head, like, no, I'm going to do this. Because I kind of talked about it, fantasized about it in my head for a while. And it was just kind of talk, right? I'm going to do this, but then never actually went anywhere. And then it was kind of my New Year's resolution at the 2017 to 2018, that New Year's, I said, nope, I'm going to do this. And so I kind of set my sights on it, but it took about 6 months before I figured out just the very basics of how to even shoot a video, record it, edit it, get it uploaded to YouTube, title it, all of those. It took me about 6 months before I was confident enough. Okay, I'm gonna be able to do this.
Yeah. Let's talk about why. Like, why start a YouTube channel? Like, why start to put videos together? Why start to get your information out there to the public? I would imagine a lot of optometrists, they're focused on, okay, they've got student loans to deal with. They want to focus on getting as high of an income as they can in a great work location, at least as good as they can. Their minds, I think, aren't often on, let me start to create content like YouTube. Like, why go there? Why get that started and put all that time and effort into it on top of your work of being a practitioner for your patients?
That's a really good question. And there's a lot of, I think, little key points to it. early on, it really came from a frustration of being in the clinic, having a limited time with my patients. And I think every doctor knows that we're stressed by, insurance reimbursements, the amount of time we have with the patients, usually, again, pretty short. But even then, you want the patient to be motivated to follow your instructions. You need to be taking these eye drops. We need to see you back for this testing. And you can just tell some patients, it's not that they don't care, but it's often overwhelming, right? You can tell them 15 minutes of something about glaucoma and why you need to do these testing and take these medications, but they only hear like 2 words out of your head. And I felt frustrated because I also didn't have the time to give proper education to my patients. And then sometimes in the clinic I was in, like, I wanted the patient to just see the reality, like, hey, you will see better if you get this contact lens. Like, this contact lens is going to be better for you than this older contact lens that you've been wearing since the 1980s. So like that was like an educational gap. And I'm like, there's no way I can literally show you the difference here in the clinic. So I'm like, there has to be a better way. And I got inspired by watching a cooking show. It was late one evening and I was watching a rerun of Elton Brown's Good Eats. And he was a little bit more scientific. And I remember him explaining how milk boils. And he kind of like cut back for half a second and saw like a molecule in the air and like showed how the protein changes. And I'm like, gosh, that is so good. I wish there was a TV show about eye care so that other people would like just finally understand what's going on with the eye, how precious vision is, or how our technology with eye care works. Because then I'm like, then I wouldn't have to like sell anything to anybody. It was just the general public would get it and they would be motivated to want the better contact lens or want the better prescription or better treatment and so forth.
So this was sort of an extension of your work with patients. Like you didn't have the time within that, those minutes to educate them as much as you want. So this content that you're creating can be an extension. This is something you can direct them to or even send them and say, hey, here are my thoughts on this subject. Here's a 7 to 12 minute video of me talking about this. I know we can't get into it in this appointment, but this is something you can at least watch, and it's sort of an extension of your work with that patient.
Exactly. It's a whole library of information, and it's also kind of validating to the patient. They get to see and hear you like educate your knowledge, like share your knowledge willingly with them. And so, especially as a young doctor, I think everybody finishes school and every other patient comes in, they're like, really, you're a doctor? You look like you're 12. You get that a lot. And so in some ways it also helps kind of reassure people, like, you know what you're doing. You understand the medications and the treatments. And so there's that role. And it serves so many purposes. It's really fascinating. And then of course, even from a marketing standpoint, the channel's big enough now. I have people from around the world who've flown in and traveled and driven to our clinic to come see us. So
really,
it's pretty cool.
So that's interesting because I think it can be easy to think that, okay, I don't own the practice. Like I'm not the practice owner. I'm not really the one directing our marketing strategy or marketing activities here. Like I'm an associate. Like I should just focus on my work with the patient and becoming a better practitioner and let everything else take care of itself. Like why should that associate work on sort of this branding and marketing, like on top of their work? Mm-hmm. Have you seen that impact your own just activity and seeing patients in a substantial way? Like obviously, as you said, like people are coming from out of the country to come see your clinic.
Yeah. So when I first started, I didn't know what I was kind of stumbling upon when I first had the idea and the courage to start the channel. I know the doctors I worked with at the time, they did offer to buy the equipment and let me kind of chase this because I knew that it could potentially be like a marketing tool in some way. And then as I kind of did more research, because I knew I wanted to do it right, I started figuring out like how YouTube channels make income. And I started to realize, oh, if I'm putting all this work into it, like I'm just an associate doctor, I'm being hired, that's not in my contract. Like I could do it for them, but this is a lot of work and this could potentially be even a business in its own. And so I kind of discovered that and thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this thing totally on my own. I'm going to take on the risk of buying all the equipment and putting in the time. And so that's kind of how it started. Now it's really cool because the clinic I work at now, different clinic, they're 100% supportive of me doing this. I think obviously their clinic gets some benefit because I have people seeking to come see me. I'm able to, because I fit like scleral lenses, but I'm not the best scleral lens fitter in the world. And in fact, I have a colleague who's at my clinic who he is way better at and more proficient at fitting sclerals. So I'll fit an easy cone, but if I have a patient, and I've had some cases that are really tough that have come in because they see my videos, and I get to at least hand them off and be like, you know what, I'm honored that you came in to see me, but I want the best for you as my patient. And I'm going to let you know that at our clinic, Dr. Faso, I'm like, he's going to be the best person to fit you. Like I'll be by your side if you want, but he's got the magic touch for you right now. So it also just pushes me. So there's some good advantages to it, kind of having this on the side.
Yeah. And did you ever have to have a conversation with them about like any agreements or anything in writing to say like, hey, this is my activity, this is my brand, this is sort of mine to own, and the practice doesn't really have a right over it. Like, did that ever come up in conversation?
Yeah, we talked about that early on, and they were very respectful and didn't want to take anything from it. There's also, I guess this is a whole other thought too, but even potentially liability wise, having a social media presence as a practitioner, like a practicing doctor, potentially has some liability questions. It's still very much a Wild West sort of world when it comes to that. I'm not an attorney, right? But you could imagine also that potentially a clinic would say, hey, let's just be on the safe side. Let's not combine the two.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like what potential liability, is what you're producing, can it be construed by someone to be like medical advice? I don't know all the ins and outs of it. From my profession, like there's a whole world of compliance and legal things that I need to think about when creating content. So totally understand that thought. But I can see from the practice's perspective to say, hey, you are an employee here. This is a part of our marketing efforts, right? This is really a part of what we're doing here. And I think maybe unintentionally or intentionally, like you've decided to say like, no, this is my brand. Like this is my essentially business, right? This is my thing that I'm building. I can take it with me wherever I go. And that's sort of what's really powerful about building a personal brand, right?
Yeah.
Building your own thing, and that this is something that you own. And I think it's common to say that, I think there's a common thought that if you want to get ahead as an optometrist financially, especially considering the student loans and everything, just to get into the profession, like you really need to go into private practice ownership. Like that's how you move forward financially. And I'm sure I've nodded along to that in agreement, but the reality is there's a lot of ways to build up equity in something outside of just the private practice. There's a lot of ways to build either content and create a business around that. There's a lot of ways you can start to build something outside of the practice, or whether it's a side business or not, and bring in income and bring in something that you own that's yours. And I thought you've done a really good job with that. And And what does that income look like? Like, how does a YouTuber, and now you have like a whole website and blogs and other content along with it, but like, how does a YouTuber make money? How does that work?
So I definitely want to answer that. I do want to just make one side comment, especially early on. I guess, again, for anybody who may be interested in making content like this, you can, of course, start a YouTube channel or make content on your own as a personal thing. Mm-hmm. But I even knew early on that this YouTube content, this YouTube channel, is a business. Yeah. And so just as you would start a private practice in providing eye care to a community, you start a business. You don't just do it out of your own home. And so I did that in starting my own LLC and basically started a marketing and consulting company and built it from there with a business plan and everything. So thankfully,
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for anybody who's going that direction, that's kind of the same idea. Yeah. It's in itself its own business. Yeah. But the world of income from YouTube can be pretty staggering. So when I got into it, I had no idea how people were making money. I knew that, some video game streamers, right? There's like 12-year-olds out there who have like a video game YouTube channel and they have like 20 million subscribers and they make ridiculous amounts of money. But I'm like, how do they make income? And of course, if you watch YouTube, you see ads that play in the front, in the middle, and at the end of these videos. Those are ads that are auctioned through Google because Google owns YouTube. And so basically businesses go to Google, they say, hey, we want our ads to play in front of YouTube videos. We want our ads to play as banners on websites, on app games, everything. And so there's an auction about, hey, who's going to get more time in front of more viewers? And then there's a price associated with that. Mm-hmm. For YouTube content creators, if those ads get played on your videos and more people watch your videos, the more views get made, then a percentage of that money going to Google gets split with you. So that's called AdSense, Google AdSense. And that's just one way of making income off of YouTube. And that can range, if you're a content creator in the United States, it can range from, I think the average is about $5 for every 1,000 views. Okay. That's kind of the rough average in the United States, but it depends on the niche. So if you see like a financial person being on YouTube and you listen to them talk about stock market prices, they may be getting $100 for every 1,000 views. But then a video gamer or like again, maybe a health educator like myself, the numbers vary wildly and throughout the year. So around Christmas time, most advertisers are putting a lot more advertising dollars out on the market. So you'll see those numbers rise. And then as soon as January 5th comes around, you'll see those numbers tank. Mm. So again, funny enough, if you ever started a business in the YouTube marketing world, there's kind of this underground saying that if your primary income is from AdSense, then you have a hobby, not a business. Hmm. So there are other ways to make income, and that can come from affiliate marketing. So people will talk about products, or they'll put links in their blog or in the description of the video, and they'll have a disclaimer, and I do this too. And I don't make much off of it. But if I say, hey, warm compresses is something that naturally people can do for their dry eye, just as we do in the clinic, like you would in the clinic, right? If you sell, there's multiple different masks out there, but if you sell one out of your clinic, you sell it for $30. They could go on Amazon, buy it for $25. You made, a little profit off of it. Mm-hmm. Basically the same thing. They click that link, they go to an online website, a retailer, they purchase it. I get a small commission off of it. Got it. It's not much, but if you have a lot of viewers, you think, oh, you're only making 20 cents. Yeah, well, you sell 2,000 of them a day, it can rank up pretty fast.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
So even within YouTube, you can start to diversify your income sources. There's ad revenue, there's affiliate links, different things like that. And then
sponsorships is another
sponsorships, right. And are the ups and downs of the revenue that's generated from these? You mentioned that can be somewhere between 5 or whatever. There might be a wide swing.
Yeah.
Like, are the fluctuations in the revenue, is that based on just supply and demand? Like, is there a lot of demand for those videos versus is there a lot of people making videos about them? Like, what drives that?
So the RPM, CPM, that's RPM is your revenue per milli or revenue per 1,000 views. And then your CPM is basically your kind of the same thing. It's just in a different perspective. Instead of the amount of money you're getting, it's more of like the amount of money that's going toward Google, like how much the advertiser's paying versus how much you're getting. A lot of it does depend on who the advertisers are and what the niche of that video is. So, for example, if I talk about glasses of any kind on the channel, I know that the advertisers who are going to show up on it are probably online glasses vendors.
Okay.
Right. Because their mode of marketing is direct to consumer, and they will compete against each other, all these different online websites. And so because of that competition, they're in an auction and they're going to drive the prices up. And so that's just one way that the prices will fluctuate. And that may depend on just what the market is at. But the other part is the views. And the more views you can gain, if you have a video that's really popular, you're getting tens of thousands of views every day, then it's simply volume. Because you can get more views, you're getting more of that ad, the more the ads are playing in front of people, the higher the revenue is going to go.
Got it.
And so that's how some YouTubers get very, very wealthy, is because they get, like, the most famous one is Mr. Beast. He gets 100 million views on a video within a day. And it's just staggering to see some of the financial numbers that get speculated around how much he makes.
That's incredible. And it's almost, creating content takes a lot of work, right? I mean, I'm gonna ask you about like how you got started and learned about it and what that progression was like. But I mean, this takes a lot of work, but eventually as you build the content, you can reuse some of that content differently. Like you start to build up this reserve of content that you built up, and this starts to become passive income. Like this, it starts to generate an income machine that you're not really having to show up to every day like you would in the practice. Like it's sort of happening behind the scenes. And yes, you want to create fresh content to keep it relevant, but I mean, are you able to reuse old videos in different ways? Like what is that like? Well,
right now, of all the videos, I've over 200 videos on YouTube now that I've produced over the last 4 years. And some of even my oldest videos, which are like using an older camera, doesn't look good, doesn't sound good. At least when I look at it, I get frustrated at the quality. But that's just the progression of learning. Those videos still live, and they still get thousands of views every day. And it's hilarious to look at some of the revenue numbers of those videos just over time, right? If like a couple of videos, like there's one video I was looking at the other day, I'm like, gosh, I haven't thought about this video in a few years, but it's generated over like almost $20,000 over 4 years. So, I mean, if somebody came to you even today and said, hey, I want you to work really hard, you're going to spend like 18 hours making this educational video, and I'm not going to pay you anything for 4 years, but in 4 years, I'm going to give you a check for $20,000.
Yeah.
You'd probably think, wow, that's awesome. That's definitely worth my time, but you have to wait 4 years to get that check.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the mindset. So sometimes things will work out that way, but sometimes they don't. So there's videos it's flopped where it's like, I've made $40, but there are some other ones where it pays well and it continues to generate income. And Who knows how
And
long some of these videos will live?
I mean, it's an investment, like, right. And just like any other business, I mean, just like cold starting a practice, just like putting your money in investing in something, like instead of, I mean, you are investing a little bit of money because you had to get the equipment that you need to get good quality content, but you're putting in a lot of time. Like the
Time
time is the
is
huge investment here. And it takes time, even more time for that to work and to see a return. But that's the investment that you're going to put in really in any business venture, right? It's the same with any investment like that.
Mhm.
And what's really cool about that is that not only is this business that you're building creating income for you now and into the future, and that will probably compound even more and grow even more as time goes on, but you can, not that you would want to, but you can leave your current practice and that brand follows you. Like your all of your expertise that's out there on your in your content follows you to wherever you go. And no matter where you're at, you can pull up that YouTube channel and say, here is my expertise. Like here's what I've built that follows you around everywhere. That's not owned by any employer or anybody but yourself. That's what's so powerful to me about building something like this, building up your personal brand, is that it will go with you wherever you go. It's something you own entirely. And I think people can think like, okay, how do I get started? Like where did you start? How did you actually start making videos? How did you learn to get better? Like where did this begin and how did you progress to get better and better?
You could imagine I YouTubed it.
Got it. Okay.
uh,
YouTube University. Got it.
right, yeah. At the time, there weren't as many resources. You can be pretty skeptical about some of the other videos that are made, and even in the world of just teaching or learning how to do YouTube, there are certain personalities that you'll find, and sometimes you can kind of get this feeling of almost scammy radar. Like it's like
Mm.
they're too good at marketing and sales, and you kind of lose some trust. But uh, I watched a lot of content, just learning like, okay, what camera should I use? How? Because I wanted it to at least look fairly good. I didn't want to shoot it from my. At the time, the phone camera I had was awful. Now phones are pretty good. You could probably do pretty good making a nice channel with just your phone. But
Mm.
so I started there. Eventually, found more content to audio, and then editing, and finally just bit the bullet. But I taught myself largely just from, I'd go to the gym and I'd sit on the stationary bike with a notepad and my phone, put my earbuds in, and I'd watch an hour's worth of instructional videos of people showing you how to use this type of camera and how to set up the camera to get the right shot and how to set up the lighting. And I'd sit there and just take notes the whole time. And then I would spend some weekends just playing around with all the equipment to try to figure it out. And then finally, 4 years later, it's like, it's pretty cool to look at the quality of some of the stuff. And I get pretty just proud of myself. I'm like, I got a good shot there. That looks good. And,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
How long did it take before you finally felt like, okay, like I know what I'm doing. This is actually good quality stuff. Like how long did that take?
Uh,
Or do you still feel like there's room for improvement?
there's
Or are you
always
there
room.
yet?
That is true. There is always room for improvement. I'm constantly trying to, if I can, find ways to make at least teaching better, the visual component of it. There's just, in a vacuum, making an educational good video, assuming somebody watches the whole thing. The next component of the learning curve with all of social media and with YouTube is just keeping people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could make this amazing video, best video in the world, that you should get nominated for an award for it. But if it doesn't keep people's attention more than 30 seconds, then no one's going to watch the rest of the video. And
Right.
then, so there becomes kind of this learning curve of figuring out, okay, how do I talk fast enough? How do I keep animations going or B-roll on the video to keep people's attention and keep wanting to learn more? So that's a whole other part of it. But to answer your question, I think it probably took me at least until the beginning of 2019 before I started like feeling more of a groove to it. And yeah, I think it was because there was a video about when Transitions contact lenses came out, the AccuView Transition lenses, that was the first time that I had planned a video, title, the keywords, the topic, how the video is going to look and go. That was the first time I planned it, shot the video, and saw success that I had planned.
I see. Yeah.
That was a bit of a change, where it wasn't me just throwing out random stuff, seeing what sticks against the wall. It was like, no, I planned it out from A to Z and it worked. And that got me a little bit more addicted to it than even before. So
yeah. What equipment, let's just say video, if someone wants to get started in making videos, like what are the basic pieces of equipment that they need?
Yeah. The most basic is honestly now, if you just have a newer phone, would probably do everything. Because most new phones now have great cameras on them. You definitely don't want to use the part that you can see. You want to flip it around to the back, because the camera on the back side of the phone is way better.
Yeah.
A good mic, a good microphone. Your video quality can be a little bit poor. Like, you can sacrifice some video quality as long as your audio is really good and clean.
Okay.
So it's worthwhile, I think, for people to invest a few $100s in getting a nice microphone.
Okay.
Those are probably the two biggest things, next to lighting, because your camera is going to work better if you've got good lighting. And I've probably spent the most money over the years, probably wasted the most money buying lighting. I was always trying to save pennies by, I'll get this off-brand lighting. Oh, I'll get this off-brand lighting over here. I'll try this different thing. And now I just have this like pile of old lights that I don't use anymore, because I eventually invested in a good light and I just use it for everything now.
Interesting.
So.
I think sometimes I think putting yourself out there in content, whether it's video, podcast, whatever it is, that's a very vulnerable state, right? Because not only are you putting your thoughts, you're putting information out, but you're putting the way your voice sounds, the way you look on video. I mean, it can be a really vulnerable place to put yourself. And I think that can keep people from getting started and feeling like maybe they're afraid to do it. Or maybe the other thing is that they feel like they need to overanalyze like all these different options for equipment or whatever else it is. Like, did you feel that way very early on? Like, did you feel vulnerable about it? Like, how did you get over that hump? Because I think that can just keep people from just getting started.
Yeah, so I felt that a lot early on, and I still feel it even now.
Got it. Okay.
Just in different ways.
Yeah.
Where early on, I think I was more afraid of like, gosh, not only was what the public thinking, but more like what my colleagues would think.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of judgments other doctors are going to pass on the way I speak or the way I present. And so I think that early on was more my concern. Now, the biggest hurdle for me the last year has been a little bit more of the analysis paralysis, getting too lost in the small details where it holds me back from creating the amount of content that I want to create. So that's kind of the challenge I've had to get over lately. But I would say early on, I think everybody is a little afraid to do public speaking. And a lot of people, if you ask them to public speak, they're like, no, that's like one of my biggest fears.
Yeah, I think so. I think I totally agree. And especially where it's not just public speaking, it's public speaking that's now forever on the internet. It's forever there, and you get to look back and I've not talked to anybody who makes a lot of content who doesn't say like their first whole bunch of whatever it was, videos, podcasts, or whatever, like weren't terrible.
Oh yeah.
Like their first ones, and it's okay because no one's really watching or listening in the very beginning, right? So that's sort of go ahead and experiment, figure out what works and try to improve every episode or every video or whatever it is. Because your audience is pretty small in the beginning, but I've not talked to anyone who makes a ton of content that didn't say, yeah, my earlier stuff, terrible. Like it's embarrassing. And
same thing with just being a healthcare practitioner, right? nobody's going to say that they started in school seeing their first patient and it was the best patient encounter they've ever had.
Yeah.
It went horrible. It took you 3 hours. You dropped the fluorescein on somebody.
Yeah.
You forgot to take out the retinoscopy lens or something. So it's just the truth. Yeah. Even your first podcast, I bet, you probably think, gosh,
terrible. Oh,
you learned a lot from it, right?
Yeah. Every episode is exponential improvement, I feel like. And for me, again, it was vulnerable for all the same reasons you mentioned before, but I felt like I just need to get something done and published and in public, because that meant I had to continue.
Yeah.
Right. That's the way I forced myself to get started was, okay, I have a simple microphone. I know it works well. I know it works good enough, at least. I need to get something published so that I'm forcing myself to continue, because that means I have to keep going.
Yeah, holding yourself accountable. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're held accountable to yourself, and the public sees it. So you've got to keep going. So that's the way I pushed myself off the edge and got started. But if this is for the listener, like if this is a direction you want to take your own career and just starting to build content as a business and build something for yourself, like you just got to get started. That's half the battle, right?
It really is. And it is difficult. It's challenging to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I would say in YouTube videos or just making video content, there's a little bit of a crutch because you can edit. You can choose to edit. You can choose to do retakes, things like that. If you're going to do live content, even us being on this podcast right now, we don't have this scripted.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit more pressure doing this with YouTube videos. If I want, I could script them word for word.
Yeah. I
could get a teleprompter. But no matter what, I can choose to edit it if there's a mistake that happens or something. So no matter what, when I started with it, I knew, hey, I do want to be a better speaker, whether it just be for my patients, to do CE, all these different things. And I knew that making videos like this would at least make me a better speaker, presenter, all of that.
Yeah. And
I think it has. I can look back to what it was a few years ago and be like, wow, I've improved a lot. But then it's just, it's never stops going. It's spread onto my just proficiency as a doctor, because now I'm making videos where I have to do research before I make these videos. Yeah. So now I know more going into the clinic to see patients. It's great. I think it's, how many other doctors out there right now are basically writing a publication, like a blog post for like a magazine every week.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what I've challenged myself to do from now and probably, who knows, forever.
Yeah. And I know of a podcaster who basically went into it saying, like, this is a way for me to clarify what's in my brain. So I'm better educated and better at explaining it to my clients. So that's what he initially wanted to get out of it. And so even for you, talked about like that education gap and wanting to fill that. And you've just mentioned like it's helped you to become a better speaker. You've become better prepared in all these different topics. Like that's such a huge benefit. That's not financial. Maybe it improves your interaction with patients. Maybe that leads to other things financially, but that's not really directly financial. It's just about getting to be a better professional overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've seen a lot of different examples of this. You're doing awesome work with your videos. I've seen podcasts. I don't know how saturated optometry podcasts are, but I've seen podcasts where there's advertising revenue there, people doing consulting work or educational content, other businesses with services that serve other optometry practices. Like there's a whole world of opportunity outside of just owning a private practice, which can be absolutely awesome and fulfilling, a great way to go. But not everyone wants to, and not everyone needs to. I think what you're doing is a great example of that. And what's next? Like you've got this YouTube channel. Like what's next for you in terms of either content or just steps in your own business there?
So right now the YouTube channel is something that's just keeps on going. I've been striving to make more content instead of doing just one video a week to doing 2 videos a week. So that's a goal of mine. We started our Spanish channel. So we got accepted into the first 100 YouTube channels to test out Google's AI dubbing technology. So there's they have a tech now that basically will read your words and your transcript that you upload, and it'll read that into different languages and then dub it in a different voice of your choosing. They have many different voices to choose from. We're taking it slow because it is a new thing. And thankfully, my assistant is fluent in Spanish. So we're testing it out in Spanish right now just to make sure that the words are correct and not medically incorrect, because we want that to be accurate. Mm-hmm. So that's growing. So we have over 200 subscribers on the Spanish channel now.
Wow. Yeah.
And
which you probably never thought would happen when you first started. Yeah.
No. But it's cool because now it's like, it has been an international brand. I've got followers from the Philippines and from Russia and from Africa and all over the place. It's incredible. But now we have like dedicated channels that we're starting to grow. So that's cool. And then, I'm starting my own podcast, which is more optometry facing, more related. And just constantly working on to the next project, one after another.
Yeah. And you mentioned an assistant, and like what does your week look like? I mean, you, between all these different things you're juggling, like what is that actually, what's a typical week in your life?
I appreciate you asking that. The reality is it probably sounds a little unhealthy. That's the downside.
Okay.
I'm in the clinic 2 days a week. So I see patients on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the rest of the week, including weekends, is a balance of planning content, writing the content, making the content, uploading it to an editor, engaging on social media, speaking between meetings with other companies that we may be looking for with sponsorships with, or planning CE. There's all sorts of different things. But I would say in a given week, my Mondays are largely kind of planning and creating like thumbnails for the next video and getting that video for the week solidified so it's done and ready to go. Tuesday work, and Tuesday mornings I launch the video. Tuesday evenings I'm engaging on comments and sharing the videos across social platforms. Wednesday is often a mix of meetings with content creation and planning. And then Thursday's work again. Friday is business meeting till about noon, and then just kind of making sure everything's on track. And then Friday is usually more planning. And then Saturday is like 4 to 5 videos that you shoot. You batch, that's the way you can really save time. If you're just trying to do one video every week, you can do it. And I've done it for a long time, but you can get pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
And so the secret is batching. Plan ahead of time, shoot 3 to 4 videos at once, one full 8-hour day of shooting. And then you take a rest day and start editing, because then you don't have to wear out your mind for the next week.
Yeah. But, so much of your week is now in the content work. This is sort of becoming to take on more of your time than even practicing in the clinic. And it sounds like you have a bit of a team around you, right? You said you have an assistant, right? You maybe do you have editors, people helping you to put the content together? Are you doing most of it yourself? So
historically I've spent most of the time editing it myself. So if you watch the YouTube channel, you'll see most of that content I edited. Starting this last year, I did bring on an editor. I try to utilize his skills as much as possible, just because if I can send it to him instead of me spending 10 hours editing one video, that's 10 hours I could have spent planning or creating 4 more videos.
Yeah.
So financially, it just makes sense to pay him. and he's great at his work. So that's kind of one of my strategies now. And it took a long time to get to that point, though.
Okay.
I thankfully I do have an amazing assistant that she works part-time and she manages pretty much all my emails, schedules my meetings, makes sure I'm on top of just all the ins and outs that need to be completed for the business, because my role is really to research, plan, shoot the content, and keep grinding through that. And so she keeps me on track, and just she does an amazing job. So
yeah, and I think that's good to know, and that although you are in all of these videos, like you're the face of the content, you're able to eventually get to a point where you can use your time a little bit better and outsource other stuff to other people who can either do it more cheaply than your time is worth, or just better than you, or more quickly. Yeah. Like you're able to build sort of a team around you over time, which is the same with any business. I mean, that's also the case with any business, private practice, a media company, or whatever it is. Well, I really appreciate all of that. And this is such a great example of what is possible for an optometrist to build something for themselves, to create more income, to create equity in something, even if it's not just private practice ownership. There's more than one route to go in optometry. And there's a lot of different examples of that. And you're a great example. You brought a lot of realism into that too. Like what's the reality of it, right? And all the work that goes into it and the time that has to be spent. But really appreciate all of that. One more thing I want to ask you before we sort of wrap up here is I saw that you're involved in, I don't know if it's an organization, but in a group for young optometrists called Young OD Connect.
Yeah.
You're on the advisory board for that. Can you tell us about what that is, what you're a part of building?
So Young OD Connect is part of what's called BMC, or Bryn Mawr Communications. They publish not only the Modern Optometry magazine, they host Modern Optometry Live, a live CE event, but now they started this Young OD Connect. And this is really to help bridge that gap from doctors who are just graduating, more recent grads. And I think of it like a superset. It's like an accelerator lane for doctors who want to learn more and become more proficient, and just want to do more than just, what they were the very basics of what they were taught in school. They want to excel and are thirsty for knowledge. And whether that be entrepreneurship, whether that be in leadership, whether that be in just clinical didactic knowledge. So it's, for myself, I'm really honored to be on the board of it, because I get to share my knowledge and I get to learn from others at the same time. And I think it's all focused on that mindset that you never stop learning. And as a healthcare professional, you can't stop. Right? You have to keep learning and pushing yourself. And it's not just you get that degree and I'm done. It's like, no, you got to keep digging. And I think you owe it to yourself and to your patients. So
yeah. Well, that's awesome. I think any resource that's available to optometrists, especially very early on in their careers, is a great thing to have. And it looks like you're a part of something really cool there. How can people, as we wrap up, how can people find you, follow you, learn more about what you're doing?
Of course, of course you can check out on Dr. Eye Health. You can reach out to us by emailing us at hello@dreyehealth.com. Reach out to me on Instagram and all the different social channels. So those were usually the easiest ways to reach out to me. If you do reach out and send me an email, my assistant will get it and she'll forward it to me, whether it be something like clinical work related, or if it's something like more of some sort of an engagement business wise, we need to discuss something like that. But those are
awesome.
Great ways.
Well, I will put all of that in the show notes. Dr. Allen, really appreciate your time. This was awesome. I know I've learned a lot here, and for the listener, really appreciate your time as well. We will catch you on the next episode, and take care.
Want more resources to help master your money? Check out the Education Hub on Evon's website at optometrywealth.com. Evon Mendrin is a certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, a California registered investment advisor. All opinions of Evon and his guests are their own. This show is for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for specific investment, legal, tax, or other decisions. Clients of OWA may own securities mentioned on this show.